It wasn't years of abuse. It wasn't constant neglect. It wasn't an entire childhood of suffering. Carl Jung discovered something that most psychologists still overlook. Just 2 moments. 2 specific moments in childhood are enough to create a narcissist. 2 moments where something breaks inside a child forever. And the worst part, most parents don't even realize when these moments happen. Your parents probably didn't realize, and you carry the consequences today without even knowing where they came from. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover exactly what those 2 moments are. You'll understand how they work together to fragment a child's self, and you'll recognize, perhaps for the first time in your life, the exact moment when everything changed inside of you. Take a breath, because the first moment is more common than you think. It probably happened to you. The first moment Jung called the wound of primary rejection. We're not talking about obvious rejection. We're not talking about parents who abandon their children. We're talking about something much more subtle, much more invisible, much more devastating. Precisely because it's invisible, it's the moment when a child feels, for the first time, that they are not loved for who they are, but only for what they do, or for what they represent, or for what they can give their parents. And this moment can last only a few seconds. It can seem completely normal to an outsider, but inside the child, something shatters. A 5-year-old girl, let's call her Lily, runs to her mom, Sarah, with a drawing she just finished. She spent hours on that drawing, poured all her love into that paper. She expects to see pride in her mother's eyes, expects to hear that she's special, expects to feel that she's loved. Sarah glances at the drawing for half a second, says she's busy right now, says she'll look at it later, and goes back to her phone. For Sarah, nothing happened. She'll look at the drawing later. She loves her daughter. She's just busy. For Lily, something broke. She doesn't know what to call it, can't explain it, but something inside her registered a message that will echo for the rest of her life. I'm not important. What I feel doesn't matter. I need to do more to be loved. Jung explained that this first moment creates what he called a narcissistic void, an emptiness at the center of the psyche that will never be filled by anything external. The child doesn't know they have this void. They just know they feel empty. A hunger, a constant need for something that never arrives. But hold on, because the second moment is even more dangerous. And it's the second moment that transforms the void into something much worse. The second moment Jung identified as the wound of toxic shame. It's the moment when the child is exposed, humiliated, not necessarily in public. Sometimes it happens inside the house, just the child and a parent, and no one else needs to see it for the wound to be permanent. It's the moment when the child feels ashamed of who they are, not ashamed of something they did, ashamed of existing, ashamed of being themselves, and in that moment, to survive the pain, the child does something that will define the rest of their life. They create a mask. Jung called this the birth of the persona. But for the child who suffers toxic shame, the persona isn't just a social mask. It's a survival structure. It's the only way they find not to die of shame. A 7-year-old boy, let's name him Michael, is at dinner with his family. He says something, an opinion, an idea, something that seems important to him. His father, Robert, laughs, not a laugh of joy, a laugh of ridicule. His mother, Lisa, doesn't even look up. His older brother, David, repeats what Michael said in a mocking tone. Michael wants to disappear, wants the ground to swallow him whole, wishes he'd never opened his mouth. In that moment, something happens inside him. A part of who he really is dies, and something else is born in its place. A version of himself that will never be ridiculed again. A perfect version. A version that knows exactly what to say. A version that controls everything. A version that will never feel that shame again. The problem is that this version isn't him. It's a construction, a defense, a false self that will grow and grow until it occupies all the space that should belong to the true self. Remember this, because now I'm going to explain how these two moments work together to create narcissism. The first moment creates the void, the second moment creates the defense, and the combination of the two is what transforms a normal child into a narcissistic adult. Think of it this way. The first moment is like digging a hole in the ground. The second moment is like covering that hole with a false structure that looks solid, but is hollow inside. From the outside, it looks like there's no hole at all. The structure seems perfect, even better than the original ground. But any significant weight, and everything collapses. The narcissistic adult is exactly that. A structure that looks solid, a persona that seems strong, an image that appears perfect, but underneath there's an immense void, and that void has never been healed. It was only covered up. Jung explained that these two moments don't need to happen in the same week, or even the same year. The first moment can happen at age 3, the second can happen at age 8, but once the two happen, the pattern is installed, the programming is complete. The child now has a void they need to fill, and a mask to hide that void. And from that point on, everything they do in life is an attempt to fill the void, or protect the mask, or both at the same time. Lily, the girl whose drawing was rejected, grows up and becomes a woman who needs constant validation, who works 16 hours a day to prove she's competent, who collects achievements as if they were medals, who can never rest, because the moment she stops, she feels the void, and the void is unbearable. Michael, the boy ridiculed at dinner, grows up and becomes a man who never lets anyone see who he really is, or who controls every word that comes out of his mouth, who manipulates every situation to never be humiliated again, who prefers to be feared than to be ridiculed again. Neither of them knows why they're like this. Neither of them remembers exactly when it started. The two moments were buried so deep in the psyche that they seem to have been erased, but they haven't been. They're there, operating, controlling, defining every choice, every relationship, every decision. Now comes the part that's going to bother a lot of people. These two moments don't need to be dramatic. They don't need to be traumatic in the classical sense. They don't need to involve screaming, violence, obvious abandonment. Sometimes they are moments so small that they would seem ridiculous if they were described out loud. But for the psyche of a child in formation, they were cataclysms. Jung said that the child's psyche is like wet clay. Any pressure leaves a mark, and certain pressures, even light ones, can leave permanent marks if they happen at the wrong moment. The wrong moment is when a child is open, vulnerable, waiting for love, waiting for validation, waiting to be seen, and instead, they receive indifference, or ridicule, or subtle rejection. Most parents who cause these moments aren't monsters. They're normal people. People who were tired, people who were distracted, people who repeated what they learned from their own parents, people who never knew that that single second of indifference would echo in their child's psyche for decades. And that's the silent horror of the generational transmission of trauma. The parents who caused these two moments were usually children who also had these two moments, and their parents too, and their parents too. A chain of unhealed wounds passing from generation to generation. Hold on, because now I'm going to show you the signs that you went through these two moments. 5 signs that you experienced the first moment, the wound of primary rejection. First, you have difficulty receiving love. When someone demonstrates genuine affection, you're suspicious. You look for the hidden agenda. You expect the disappointment that you're sure will come. Second, you feel a void that you can't explain. Even when you have everything, even when you conquer everything, even when all the boxes are checked, the void remains. Third, you need constant validation. You can't trust your own worth. You need others to confirm that you're good, competent, worthy. And that confirmation is never enough for very long. Fourth, you feel like a fraud. No matter how much success you have, You expect them to discover that you're not that good, that you're just faking it. Fifth, you have an irrational fear of abandonment, even in stable relationships, even with people who have proven their loyalty. The fear is always there, waiting, anticipating the rejection that you're sure will happen. Now, 5 signs that you experience the second moment. The wound of toxic shame. First, you have difficulty being vulnerable. Showing weakness seems impossible. Asking for help seems like humiliation. Admitting that you don't know something seems too dangerous. Second, you obsessively control your image. How others see you is more important than how you really feel. The appearance of success is worth more than the reality. Third, you react disproportionately to criticism. Even small criticisms, even constructive criticisms. Any questioning of your competence activates an automatic defense. Fourth, you avoid situations where you can be exposed. You don't take risks. You don't try new things where you can fail publicly. It's better not to try than to be ridiculed for trying. Fifth, you constantly compare yourself to others, and the comparison is never neutral. Either you're better than them, and that calms you temporarily, or you're worse, and that confirms the shame that you already feel. If you recognized 3 or more signs from each list, you probably went through both moments. Now, the question that matters: is there a cure? Carl Jung didn't believe in quick fixes. He didn't offer magical solutions. What he offered was something deeper and more difficult. He offered the path of individuation, the process of integrating all parts of yourself, including the wounded parts. The first step in this process is to recognize that the 2 moments happened. Don't minimize. Don't rationalize. Don't say it wasn't that bad. Recognize that something broke, and that you've carried that break your entire life. The second step is to find the specific moments. Sometimes they come in dreams. Sometimes they come in therapy. Sometimes they come when you stop running. And allow the memories to emerge. Finding the moments isn't re-traumatizing. It's illuminating what was hidden in the dark. The third step is to grieve. Carl Jung said that there is no integration without mourning. You need to cry for the child that you were, for the innocence that was lost, for the love that didn't come, for the shame that you shouldn't have felt. The fourth step is to gradually release the mask. Not all at once, not completely, but little by little. Allow parts of the true self to emerge. Allow vulnerability in small doses. Allow others to see beyond the persona mask. The fifth step is to fill the void from the inside out. Not with external validation, not with achievements, not with the approval of others, but with self-compassion, with self-acceptance, with a love for yourself, and that doesn't depend on performance. The super thanks isn't just financial support. It's you saying that this content deserves to exist. It's you being part of something that helps thousands of people understand their own wounds. When you click on that golden heart, you're not paying for information. You're investing in collective healing, in your own healing, in the healing of whoever will watch this video tomorrow, in breaking a cycle that may have started generations ago. Now let me show you what happens when only one of the 2 moments happens. If a child has only the first moment, the wound of primary rejection, but never goes through the second moment, they develop what Carl Jung called a fragile self. They have the void. They feel that they are not loved unconditionally, but they don't create the rigid persona mask. They remain vulnerable, remain open, and that, paradoxically, allows them to be healed more easily in adulthood. A genuine relationship, effective therapy, an experience of real love can fill the void. But if the child has both moments, the situation is much more complex, because now they have the void, and they have the defense that prevents anything from entering the void. It's like having an open wound covered by armor. The armor prevents the wound from healing, but it also prevents any treatment from reaching it. The classic narcissist is exactly that. A person with a deep wound covered by impenetrable armor. And every time someone tries to get close to the wound, the armor rises. Every time an opportunity for healing arises, the defense activates. The system that was created to protect the child now prevents the adult from being healed. And here is the cruelest paradox of narcissism. The person who needs love the most is exactly the person who pushes love away the most. The defense mechanism that was created to protect the vulnerable child now sabotages every attempt at genuine connection by the adult. And this adult doesn't understand why this happens. They only know that every time someone gets too close, something inside them panics, and they need to push away. They need to control. They need to maintain a safe distance. Carl Jung called this the compulsion to repeat. The person gets trapped in a cycle where they recreate, unconsciously, the same situations that caused the original wounds. The man who was ridiculed in childhood often chooses partners who will eventually ridicule him. The woman whose artwork was ignored often chooses bosses who never recognize her work. It's not because they enjoy suffering, but because the familiar, even if painful, feels safer than the unknown. Remember when I said these two moments don't need to be dramatic? Let me delve deeper into that, because it's crucial to understand how this might have happened to you. The first moment, the wound of primary rejection, can be something as simple as a father who never looked his child in the eyes when they spoke, a mother who always had something more important to do, a caregiver who took care of the body, but ignored the soul. The child doesn't need to be literally abandoned. They just need to feel, once, with sufficient intensity, that they are not a priority, that their inner world doesn't matter, that love depends on conditions. The second moment, the wound of toxic shame, can be a laugh at the wrong moment, a casual comparison to an older sibling, an accidental exposure of a secret, a joke about their body, about their intelligence, about their way of being. The child doesn't need to be publicly humiliated. They just need to feel, once, with sufficient intensity, that who they are isn't acceptable, that there's something wrong with them, that they need to hide in order to be loved. And these moments are so common, so normalized, so invisible to society, that most people don't even recognize them as trauma. If you say you were traumatized because your mother didn't look at your drawing, people will laugh. If you say you were traumatized because your father made a joke about you, people will say you're too sensitive. But Carl Jung understood something that most don't. Trauma isn't defined by the event. It's defined by the impact on the psyche. And the impact depends on the moment. The same event can have no impact in one situation and can be devastating in another. It depends on how open the child was, how vulnerable they felt, how much they needed love at that specific instant. And that's why two siblings can grow up in the same house, with the same parents, and one becomes a narcissist, and the other doesn't. It's not because the parents treated one worse than the other. It's because the two critical moments happened to one, and not the other. It's because one was vulnerable exactly when the rejection and shame arrived, and the other wasn't. Now let me show you how to identify if you're repeating the pattern with your own children. This is the point that most videos about narcissism ignore, because it's uncomfortable, because it implies responsibility, because it shows that you're not just a victim. You can also be a transmitter. If you went through those two moments in your childhood, the chance of you creating those same two moments for your children is extremely high. Not because you're bad, not because you don't love your children, but because you're programmed. You automatically repeat what was done to you. And the worst part? You don't even realize when you're doing it. 4 signs that you might be creating the first moment in your children. First, you get uncomfortable with their emotions. When they cry, you want them to stop immediately. When they're too excited, you want them to calm down. You prefer controlled children to expressive children. Second, you praise their achievements more than the person themselves. Good boy for getting a good grade. Good girl for cleaning your room. but rarely. I love you just the way you are, without any conditions. Third, you use affection as a bargaining chip. When they behave, you're warm. When they don't behave, you emotionally withdraw. They learn that love is something to be earned. Fourth, you're often too busy, working, on your phone, thinking about other things, physically present, but emotionally absent. They feel the body, but they don't feel the soul. 4 signs that you might be creating the second moment in your children. First, you use sarcasm or irony when talking to them, jokes that seem innocent, but carry criticism, comments that diminish, disguised as humor. Second, you openly compare them to others. The neighbor's kid can do it. Your sister never did that. Hi, why can't you be like so-and-so? Each comparison is a message that they are not enough. Third, you expose flaws in front of others. Tell embarrassing stories. Criticize them in front of friends or relatives. Make their vulnerability entertainment for adults. Fourth, and you have difficulty apologizing. When you make a mistake with them, you justify it, minimize it, blame them for your reaction. They learn that they can't trust their own perceptions. If you recognized yourself in 3 or more of these signs, you're probably repeating the cycle. Don't blame yourself. Guilt cures nothing. Awareness does. And awareness is exactly what Carl Jung offered. As the first step to breaking any pattern, there's an exercise that Jung recommended that can help you find those 2 moments. Sit in a quiet place, close your eyes, and ask yourself, when was the first time I felt like I wasn't loved for who I am? Don't try to force a memory. Let it come. It might be an image. It might be a feeling. It might be a smell. Something will emerge. Then ask, when was the first time I felt ashamed of who I am? Again, don't force it. Let it come. The psyche knows where the wounds are. It just needs space to show you. If memories surface, don't judge. Don't minimize. Don't tell yourself it's ridiculous to feel pain over something so small. For the child you were, it wasn't small. It was the whole world collapsing. 5 things you can do today to start healing. First, recognize the moments. You don't need to be absolutely sure what they were. Recognize that they probably existed, that something broke, that you carry it to this day. Second, allow yourself to feel. The persona mask you created exists exactly to avoid feeling. Lowering your guard, even for a few minutes, is revolutionary. Cry if you need to cry. Feel anger if you need to feel anger. These emotions have been trapped for decades. Third, talk to someone. It doesn't need to be a therapist. It can be a trusted friend. The simple act of telling the story, of being heard, of having your emotions validated by another human being, is already healing. Fourth, observe your patterns. When you feel criticized, what happens? When someone gets emotionally close, what do you do? When an opportunity for vulnerability arises, how do you react? Observing the patterns is the first step to changing them. Fifth, be patient with yourself. These wounds took years to form. They won't heal in a day or even a month. The process of individuation, as Carl Jung called it, is a lifelong journey. But every step counts. Each moment of awareness is a victory. There's a story that Carl Jung used to tell about a patient who spent years in therapy, trying to heal a childhood wound. After much work, the patient finally had an insight. He said, "It's not that I need to forget what happened. It's that I need to stop letting what happened define who I am today." That's the essence of individuation. It's not erasing the past. It's freeing yourself from it. It's not pretending those 2 moments didn't happen. It's stopping from living as if they are still happening, right now. The narcissist lives eternally in those 2 moments, eternally trying to fill the narcissistic void of primary rejection, eternally trying to hide the wound of toxic shame. The healing doesn't come from filling or hiding. It comes from accepting. accepting that the void exists, accepting that the shame was felt, and accepting that neither defines who you really are. Carl Jung said that we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The two moments are the darkness. While they remain unconscious, they control you. The moment you bring them into the light, they lose power. The ultimate question is this: do you remember your two moments? Sometimes the answer comes immediately. The memory emerges, clear as water. Other times, it takes time. Sometimes they appear in dreams. Sometimes they arise in unexpected conversations. Sometimes they surface when you least expect it, years after you've asked the question. The important thing isn't to remember now. The important thing is to be open to remembering, to give permission to the psyche, to reveal what needs to be revealed, to trust that the process will happen in its own time. And when it does happen, when you finally find those two moments, you'll feel something strange. You'll feel relief, because it will finally make sense, man, finally. There will be an explanation for the emptiness you've always felt, for the persona, mask you've always worn, for the patterns you've never been able to break. But let me tell you something that Carl Jung discovered, and it completely changes how you see this journey. Carl Jung realized that people who were most wounded in childhood often become the most capable of healing others, not despite the wounds, because of them. Because someone who knows pain deeply recognizes it in others. Someone who has gone through hell knows how to guide others out of it. The wounded therapist, as Carl Jung called it, isn't a contradiction. It's an advantage. The person who has gone through the two moments and who has managed to bring awareness to them becomes capable of seeing those moments in others, of naming what others can't name, of offering what they never received. That doesn't mean you need to become a therapist. It means that your wound, once integrated, becomes wisdom. Your persona mask, once recognized, becomes choice. Your narcissistic void, once accepted, becomes space for something new to be born. Carl Jung called this transmutation the lead of the painful experience, transformed into the gold of expanded consciousness. There's no shortcut. There's no bypass. The only path is to go through it. And here is the most difficult truth to accept. You can't undo the two moments. You can't go back in time and protect the child you were. You can't change what your parents did or didn't do. The past is sealed, but you can change the meaning. You can transform what was a wound wound into a door. You can use what broke you to build something that never existed. You can be the ancestor who breaks the cycle for all the generations that come after. Because when you heal, you don't just heal yourself, you heal your children who won't receive the two moments. You heal your grandchildren who will grow up in a different environment. You heal an entire lineage that was destined to repeat the same pattern forever. And that, perhaps, is the true purpose of suffering. Not that suffering is good, not that you needed to go through what you went through, but that, once you have gone through it, you have the option to transform poison into medicine, to transform pain into compassion, to transform a wound into healing. The choice is yours, and the choice starts now. In the comments, share. Do you remember one of the two moments, or both? You don't need to tell details. You can simply write first moment, second moment, or both. Let's see how many of us share the same wounds. I'll respond to everyone. In the first 2 hours,